Hey guys, I'm back at the RCA 8TS30. I want to take a deeper dive into it and update you on a few things I found out by comparing notes and posting online. One is that this is very likely the original back. Determined that by asking around and comparing it to my other 1948 RCA, my 8T241, which also has a masonite back. So it's probably a late production. The model year was 48, but they probably still made this for another year or two afterwards. So I think that's just a means to save a few bucks. They switched from a perforated metal back to a masonite back. There's a serial number, which actually does seem low, but there's been some speculation that their serial numbers might not be what we think, that they started at, say, 1 and just incremented as they made them. But who knows for sure. The blue filter in the front, definitely aftermarket, but I have seen it on some other examples of this model. So it wasn't a one-off that somebody made up on their own. Probably somebody did sell a kit or something like that. And it's very likely to just make the image more pleasant, less harsh, and less glare, better contrast, something like that. A number of you have encouraged me to give it a shot in terms of restoring this chassis. Maybe. As I said before, these chassis are not particularly rare. I have another one, in fact, it's partially restored, that has a different cabinet and it's in rough shape. So I'm more inclined to use that one. So I don't want to spend a month cleaning and detailing this chassis when they made a few $100,000, if not more. They made this chassis from 46 into 50, 51. They stopped using it, but they sold it to other manufacturers to put them into custom cabinets, rebranded them, and so on. So it had quite a long life. At any rate, I do want to pull the chassis out because I couldn't get much of a look at it just going through that bottom mesh. Now, getting the chassis out is not quite so easy. For one thing, the picture tube needs to come out first. It is not attached to the chassis. It's not attached to much of anything right now. Let's see, it's just flopping around. Really, the only thing holding it up right now is the yoke. So to get it out, you need to take the front off. And you do that. Well, I haven't done this exact cabinet before, but I've done other similar ones. The 8T241 has some wing nuts you take off and the whole front of the cabinet comes off. The 630TS has some fasteners on the front. You remove and the safety glass comes out. I don't see either one of those in this cabinet. So maybe it doesn't go into the front. Maybe. Okay, well, I can see there's a couple Phillips screws up here. Let's see, maybe there's something at the bottom also holding that front panel in place. No, it doesn't look like it. Now, I could pull the chassis out, but I would have to very carefully support that picture tube. And I would rather remove it first. So I got to figure out how. Maybe there's just some fingers that stick down on this front panel. You take out the 2 top screws and the thing lifts out or tilts out or something like that. So let's give that a try first and take out those 2 screws and see what that gets us. Okay, yeah, it was a little stiff at first, but you just remove those 2 little screws and the top does tilt out and then pulls out. Okay, so there's just a long notch and protrusion on this piece. That's how it fits in. So now you can see the picture sheet just comes right out. And that's how they got that blue plastic sheet in there too, which is not even centered anymore. So I'll be taking that out. I know some of you said you like the way it looks, but I mean, honestly, it doesn't even properly fit in the bezel, so no, it's going to go. Now, before I can just go yanking the picture tube out, a few things. Need to disconnect the high voltage anode. This set hasn't been turned on in ages, so I don't need to discharge it. Had to remove the ion trap magnet. Everybody remember, the larger magnet ring goes towards the base. I need to reinstall that. And of course, remove the plug from the base. Now, you can just carefully pull it right out the front. Alright, that shaved about 10 pounds off the weight of the set. It's very likely the original, because it has a very old school RCA Victor label on the base. It's a little discolored, but not horrible. Kind of amusing to see it next to its slightly later brethren, which also is from an RCA TV. It's also RCA branded, but that's a 21-inch picture tube from 51, maybe 52. Now there are some definite pluses to this set. It's all here. Every nut, bolt, screw, knob, everything is here and original. Now, unfortunately, speaking of nuts, bolts, and screws, I was trying to take off this bolt and it snapped. I can see corrosion has set in. I probably should have not used quite so much force and shot some PB blaster in there or some other penetrating oil. That one came loose. 3 more to go. If any of those fight me, I'll pause and use some penetrating oil. So if I want to get this bag in, I'm going to have to do a little research on YouTube and dig up some tricks about how to extract bolts that have snapped off. I don't have any specialized tools for it. Anyways, let's see about these. Whew, I put it back up on blocks once all the bolts were loose, so I could take them out from the bottom because the chassis would start sliding over with all the weight of the transformer and stuff if I hadn't. Anyways, yeah, it's pretty nasty. Some lovely debris in here. What the hell is that, a nut or marble or something? Could be worse. The wood doesn't look too horribly rotted or anything. Definitely mice, just judging by the size of the shit in there. Now, you can imagine if this is this bad all over and this big pile of fluff came out. I haven't looked at the bottom of the chassis yet, but I know it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. So let's just get at it. Just wondering how the heck did they get under the chassis, because it's metal all around the perimeter. Maybe they squeezed in next to that vertical output transformer. Okay, it's actually not quite as horrific as I thought. They gnawed on some of the caps a little bit. I thought the wiring would be annihilated and transformers eaten up. Definitely have corrosion, probably from urine. And then there's that. Let me grab an implement to get that out of the way. And this bayonet will do the trick nicely, I think. Time to fire up the shop vac. Get all this out. So if you've been watching my 8T241 series, this should look fairly familiar to you. But it's a little different. Is the 8T241 has 24 tubes, this has 30 tubes. It has, for example, one more electrolytic down there, and of course it has more tubes. There's the transformer that was bad on my other set. 8T241 has 2 tubes up here, this has 4. Because this uses 6J5s instead of a 6SN7, which is a dual triode, or a 12SN7 dual triode. This uses individual triodes. And it consumes 320 watts at 115 volts. So well over 2 amps, which is a lot for a 10-inch black and white TV. Okay. So now I'm on the phones because it's not as horrific as I thought it would be underneath. The cabinet dealt with worse. The Radiola 60 I worked on recently was a whole lot worse. This has no odor, which is a huge plus. Of course, it's winter, so that might change when the weather gets warmer. But we're certainly going to get the shop vac out, vacuum that all up, throw on some vinegar or Nature's Miracle to kind of neutralize any odors. And then once all that's dried out, I'll seal it with shellac, most likely. We can remove the rust from those plates down there if it needs it. I'll dust the picture tube. I have spares if I need it. That's not a big deal. Really, it comes down to the top of the chassis. I'm not going to start working on the chassis now, but what I will do is I'm going to pop out some of these tubes that are super crusty looking, just to give you some idea how hard it may be to get that out. If I just use a power washer like some of you suggested, I've dealt with baked on mouse urine and corrosion before. It would only do so much. And I don't want to damage these coils, so these these are actually like traps. The wiring is exposed, they're not inside metal. Some of the coils are inside metal boxes, some are just out in the open. They're phenolic with wire wrapped around them. And of course the tube sockets. Not saying you can't, that's just stuff to be careful around. More likely what I would do, well, I was going to say use that Rust-Oleum rust remover, which is phosphoric and hydrochloric acid, but I can't buy it anymore. I don't have much left. But that's what I've used in the past. Just keep applying it with a brush and sop it up periodically. Navel jelly, yeah, but that pink goo is just going to get everywhere and harden and crustify and get into all the nooks and crannies, and it'll be a pain to remove. And unlike, say, the Predict I did recently, where I stripped it down completely, took all the took it all apart, removed all the wiring. This stuff's all riveted together. I can't remove all those tube sockets and all the wiring and everything. That would be an insane amount of work. Or, of course, what I could do is just use a stiff wire brush and spray paint over it, seal it in, and move on with life. At least I'll try doing some cleaning in the not too distant future. But you can see the entire top surface everywhere is covered in rust, which was caused by urine, I'm sure. I vacuumed out the chassis and the cabinet, slid the chassis back in the cabinet, and it's going to stay in the garage for the time being. I did take the knobs and some of the hardware inside and a couple of the tubes we're going to check in a moment, but right now I want to test the picture tube. So, let's get that going. And I will use trusty B&K 440, which is one of the earlier testers on the market. I like using this often for doing these earlier tubes because the CR70 is much newer and they don't even bother giving you an adapter for these, the standard early 12-pin base. And you have to use these little stupid clips. Yeah, I can make my own adapter, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I've had pretty good luck with these picture tubes, and I have a bunch of spares. It is the standard, most common early picture tube. I'm trying to adjust things so you guys can see what's going on. So we simply plug this directly into the base. Oh, and that mat I threw down there, that is an original period RCA CRT mat. I also have a later rectangular one around here somewhere. Alrighty, very easy tester to use. Heater voltage 6.3. We start out by checking the shorts, and we just simply turn it on. And we do have filament glow. Probably hard to see with all these lights on. But it is glowing. And now we wait and watch the neon bulbs. Let's see if it's good. This should be off, and the left half of these two should light up. Now, I say I've had pretty good luck. It's very common for them to seemingly be dead when you first turn them on. This thing may not have been turned on in 70 years, so may need a little time to wake up. So don't just write it off and go right to trying to rejuvenate and think it's a dead CRT. One thing you can do to speed up the process a little bit is jump it over to 7. That's fine. It's not going to burn out at 7 volts. But it should come to life a little bit faster. This one's starting to show a glimmer of life. Alright, I'll let this sit. It may take a good 5-10 minutes. I'm up to 8.4 volts now, and there's just nothing at all. The neon lights aren't even really doing anything. I've tried. Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm flicking the neck of the CRT, and when I do, the neon lights flash. Oh, the magic tap did it. So, something's loose somewhere. Hey, the emissions are into the green. Of course, I'm at 8.4 volts, but cutoff is just fine. Weird. Try the life test for the heck of it. It drops way down. Now I'll let it sit for a while. Here, I'll drop it down to 6.3. So even though this is in the bad, that would produce an image. So it's definitely not dead. That was weird. I guess I have the touch. Alright, well, back to 7 and resume. I'll pick up again in 10-15 minutes from now. See where things are at. Hey, what do you know, after about 20 minutes, we have emissions in the good at only 6.3 volts. And the cutoff control is great. So, it's definitely a good picture too. I let it cool down, turned it back on, and now I'm back to the same problem. No emissions, no indication of anything until I tap the neck again. So I'm pretty sure there's an open element. Hopefully it's the cathode, because I've had some luck re-welding those. I'll save that for another day. So I'm going to wrap this video up by seeing if I can clean this up. I'll start out with just some Windex paper towels, and then for the heck of it, let's test it. Yummy. It's actually cleaning up very easily. Just finished one pass. I'm doing another. I feared it was going to be more baked on, which means maybe the set was never run after I got so nasty. It's not the original, it's a Sylvania, but it is certainly an early style. I use two 5U4s, the other is a newer type, which is an RCA, oddly enough. This one's definitely seen better days. So, just the base might have been gnawed on a little bit. Not that it really matters. I could replace all these tubes if I needed to, but I do like these early style tubes with the ST envelope, especially on these early RCA sets. I think it's nice to use some period correct tubes. Oh, and the reason I don't want to re-weld the cathode now is I can't do it with this device. I need to get a different device I don't have easy access to right now, and I haven't done it in a while. I need to read up the technique because it's not. I don't even think it's in the documentation. I think it might have been in a separate manual with tips and tricks, or maybe somebody else figured out a way to do it. I've done it in videos in the past. I'll just tell you briefly what you do is, I think you put the CRT in rejuvenation mode, and you whack the neck, and it helps to orient the picture tube on its side. And so what's happened is inside the electron gun, there's leads coming in through the base, and then there's a little connection going to the cathode that's welded on, tack welded, that popped open very likely. So what you do is you put, you're going to charge up the cap for rejuvenation, but because there's no cathode connection, that charge has nowhere to go, and hopefully when you wrap the side of the neck, it vibrates the metal pieces and they touch, and there's enough energy in that charged up cap that welds it back together. I've done it, I think, 3 times successfully, but those ones I've done it on, I haven't used those picture tubes a whole lot. What I'm concerned is with cycling of heating and cooling, and if it gets bumped into, the welds could pop open again. A nice looking 5U4, really bright getter, no discoloration. Alrighty, let's test the tube. Glowing. And it's supposed to have a short at 8 in HK, so that is normal. Emissions, yeah, it's good. Life test. Good, but not fantastic. The needle shouldn't move at all if it's like a brand new tube, but certainly serviceable. Might as well check the other side of it. 586. Yeah, the other side's good too. Seems to have even more life. Alright, cool. So, I'll ponder things. I think there actually might be a big development in this project tomorrow, so I'll keep you in suspense on that. But yeah, this is a restorable set. It's all there. It's a little gross, but it could be restored. Thanks for watching.